And it actually has started. Here we go. Alright, so yeah, I'm really sorry about starting about 20 minutes late. But we're starting. We're only going to have 3 games again today. But next week, in order to make up for the fact that we've only had 3 games, and in order to make sure that all of our players play full games, I'm going to redo the draw, and I'm going to get it all figured out. So, starting off today, as player number 1, the Blue Trunks, the Persian player, we've got AlphaLeopard playing his Persia. Yeah, I already said Persia, I think. Persia. So, we've also got, up here on the top side today, Uomonero. So I've actually figured out how to pronounce that, sort of. And because Savage has exited the tournament, I don't have to try and pronounce his name in full, so I'm not even going to attempt that. So I should be okay with announcing all of our players' names this tournament, I think. I'm glad. I'm so glad. I definitely did unmute. Yeah, I did unmute myself. Hey man, what's going on? Sorry guys, I won't be able to watch chat while I'm casting, I'm afraid. But if you leave your messages, I'll just be checking between each game. So we've already got AlphaLeopard going for an early barracks, which is nice to see. But he's not actually on a hunt yet, which is going to make this interesting because he's going to need to get the food out here. Going on the wood early there is nice to get the barracks out and to be able to afford a storehouse, but I'm not sure how this is going to go considering he's going to have all these gatherers on wood, but he's going to not have enough on the food. Like this is the highest priority for him right now, this stage of the game. And Nero, on the other hand, done it similarly, but sort of backwards. He's got the storehouse first, and he has gone on the hunt, so this is good to see here. He's not going to have any downtime. He's got, well, actually he might do, because he's got so many villagers building the barracks, and he doesn't really need to. He really only needs 1, possibly 2. I mean, it's quite common, particularly on... Well, Erie does it with every single civ, but as Babylonian or Norse, or sometimes Celt, for people to go with 2 villages on the barracks, just to force it out that little bit faster, so they can be a bit more dominant in the early game. And Erie, like I said, will do it with any civ, he feels like, it seems. Well, yeah, most players tend to do it with those 3 civs from time to time, like if they want to play a very aggressive game early, or they know they're going to face a very aggressive game early. But here we go, AlphaLeopard has a Sparabara on the way over. Oh, I didn't actually see that. Perhaps he did take that the whole time, and I was just rabbiting on about nothing. Sorry about that. I'll have to go back and watch the replay. I'm a noob. Sorry guys, I'm just all over the place today. I'm pretty wrecked. A couple of big days at work. And been running this, and it's been fun, but it hasn't been without its challenges, you know? So right now we've got Nero sending his spears on a completely different angle to AlphaLeopard's Sparabara, who are actually taking a little bit of town center fire, which is not so good, but at the same time, because it's the Sparabara, you can sort of afford to tank a shot or 2 that you otherwise wouldn't. You've got a little bit more pierce armor at 40%, you've got quite a fair bit of health at 240. So you actually do fare the best out of anybody when you are tanking this sort of damage, but this is quite nice for Alpha, really. He's forcing 5 workers being pulled back. He's going to lose a Sparabara for it, but he's going to deny a lot of gathering time, and doesn't look like Nero's going to garrison the villages. He's actually running them around the town centre and loses one of them for it. Meanwhile, over here, he's sent one to the bottom side of his opponent's base. At the hunt, he's going to get another villager, which is really good for him. And Nero, in the meanwhile, very aggressive on Alpha's southern hunt here, so he's probably going to get a villager out of that, it seems. But meanwhile, back up here, Nero's forced to defend with a single spearman. Hasn't got another one in production just yet against these Sparabara, so that's actually sort of going to hurt him. He's had that low Sparabara attacking the whole time. He's going to get this spear pretty easily, and he's probably even going to have the health if he's onto this. Actually, he's probably watching at home right now. He's probably going to lose that Sparabara now. But oh, it seems that Alpha's picked a good time to go in here. He's going to save this villager, but he's not going to have the Sparabara alone to be able to take this fight. And Nero's done a good job at selecting another villager here, because he's going to be able to work away at that one. He might even be able to kill it here. Yeah, so he does get a villager. Is he going to get a second? So, oh, the villagers are quick. But they really light Jordans on today. So 9 villagers for Alpha to 15 from Nero at this stage. So both players Could have probably done a little bit better job at working production behind this, but it seems that Alpha really has fallen behind in that regard. But he's now picking up again, producing some more workers. Is continuing to harass his opponent's hunt. Nero actually isn't gathering any more food. He's got a little bit in the bank, but he's probably doesn't have the gold to actually afford any more spears. Alpha actually is getting enough gold to be able to keep producing these Spara. And he's actually still down in age though, because Nero has snuck in an age 2 here. Ooh, really low Spara there, really low spear there. That's interesting, watching these players do the dance. That's 2 health on that Spara. If it tanks the first town center shot, so that's actually a good thing in a sense, because it's not going on to one of these others, but at the same time it also means that it's not getting any damage out. So it's always hard to really evaluate until after the fact, but the Sparas are going to be able to continue to keep tanking shots. And these spears are going to continue to try and work away at them. The spears do have a little bit more health, do have a little bit more damage, but they don't actually have as much in terms of armor, I don't believe. So, yeah, they've got the same melee infantry armor, but they don't actually have the pierce armor. So the Sparas are able to ignore a lot of the town center damage, even if it is an age 2 town center. Right now, worker counts 11 to 19. I did actually full screen this, yes I did. Cool, so final couple of Spara here falling for Alpha, and Nero has a pretty decisive score lead, I think. He's actually at 19 to 11 villages. He's got a couple of eco upgrades queued up here, which is good. So he's got his handsaw, he's got his picker's gloves. Alpha hasn't yet gone for any economic upgrades and is starting on a range, trying to defend against any aggression coming out, but there's a stable now for Nero. So this is going to mean he's going to be able to actually kill any bowmen quite quickly, because he'll be able to get the raiders out. He's only just now working towards his second town center. Alpha hasn't started working towards his second town center at all just yet. Both players are going to be really slowed down on their economies now, having taken that early engagement now. So we are 7 minutes in, and it's pretty low population game still so far. 23 to 35 total pop. This is a nice mix of units here, because he's still got the 6 spears, so if there is Spara bar coming out, Alpha's going to need a couple of them to really be able to work around the spears. Any Asabara. Spears, yeah, sorry. Going crazy. Alpha working in some spearmen of his own, because he knows that his opponent's probably going to add raiders. Norse tend to rely on a really infantry focused, well, melee focused composition, even though the throwing axemen are technically a ranged unit. In terms of their class, they're actually a melee infantry unit, so yeah, Norse tend to really rely on that. That means they can take a quick temper and get a lot of bonus damage to all of their units at once, but it also means that they are quite vulnerable to spearmen when they add in the raiders, and the bowmen are going to be able to clean up any of the infantry unless Nero can just overwhelm Alpha here. So the bowmen all the way at the back there, able to get off a lot of nice free hits, but they're not focusing down the throwing... Oh, here we go. They are focusing down the throwing axemen now, so this is going to be quite good, because it's going to mean that Nero's not going to have the nice damage in the back line. And even as he chips away at the Spara bar there, that beefy, he's going to be able to... He's going to have to back off. So Alpha is struggling to get all of his unit production out. And Nero actually assembling some raiders at the back of his opponent's base. This is actually quite nice having them held up here, just because if Alpha tries to build here, it would have gotten interrupted. This isn't quite so good for Nero, because it's tipping Alpha off as to, you know, where the raiders are, just how many there are. There's villages up here exposed, there's no aid tent, there's no second town center up here, so those villagers will have to run back to the town center if Nero was able to get on that wood line, but instead he's focusing down a storehouse, which is effectively just a 50 wood outpost at this stage. It's only really giving vision to Alpha, who's actually taking quite a good fight here, just because he's hit a good number of bowmen. And as long as he doesn't actually lose these, he can actually turn this around. Although the raiders have come in, they haven't gone on the bowman, and there's only one of them left here attacking at the stone, so Alpha actually has now taken a tent. Oh, there is one over there working away at the villagers. And Nero has plenty in his opponent's base, but Alpha's actually in a position to defend against this. There's this Asabara out now, so they can defend pretty well against that Raider 1-to-1. It's a much more expensive unit, and they both do the same role. Although Nero might have the resource lead really at this point to be able to go for aggressive tower play and really contain Alpha until he taps out. It's 21-28 the villager count in favor of Nero, so he's 7 ahead, and he's still taking not the greatest of fights. This Raider's not attacking the bowman, and Nero is trying to work on getting this tower up, although Alpha does actually focus it down, so that's quite good for him. He's going to get a deny off on that, and it had built about a quarter, so that's going to cost Nero a little bit there. But in saying that, Nero is building up a little bit of a bank behind this. He's attacking over Alpha's base, and Alpha is already behind on villagers, so the longer he can keep up this pressure, the better it's going to be for Nero. The Raider going straight in on the bowman, and as you can see, it really only takes 4 hits for the bowman to be felled, so still quite a nice combat. And the comp that I was saying, he's got the Raiders, he's got some spearmen in the mix, he's got mostly throwing axemen, but the occasional spearman is also good just to deny the Asabara. And the throwing axemen are good in the sense that the spearmen get hard counted by the bowman. The throwing axemen really only get soft counted by it really, because they've actually got a range multiplier themselves. They are a range, unit, and their range is half of the bowman's so you do tank a couple of shots in the beginning, but at least you trade a little bit better than you will with spearmen against bowman. And he just needs to add a couple more raiders, and he's going to have the composition he needs to overwhelm Alpha here. But Alpha, he just really needs to keep producing more of really anything at this stage, and I'm not sure if the tower is the best bet. He needs to get more villagers on this town center and get that up. That's his imperative at this point, because if Nero snipes this could be the game. All of his units are up at the other side of his base, taking a fight, and that's going to be an easy win up on the top side, but over on this bottom side he's going to lose the second town center, and this far into the game it's not going to be a good thing at all for him, because he's going to be a town center down now, because Nero has snuck his into the back in the meanwhile, and he's up to 36 villagers to 22 now for Alpha, so this is going to be quite tough for Alpha right now. Nero sniping all the villagers on the wood line, so that's not great for Alpha, who's fixated on this fight at the top side, but at the bottom side of his base everything's being destroyed, so it's going to be really rough for him. He's going to get up this defensive tower, but it's not going to offer him much assistance. He's got no melee military here except for this one Asabara now, so this is really dangerous for him. And Nero is still continuing to produce. He's just getting some spearmen at this stage in terms of military, but he's only really seeing Asabara coming out from his opponent. He's got a couple of throwing axemen, he just needs to get a couple of raiders to deal with these bowmen, and he's actually going to be sitting pretty at this point, because Alpha is well behind him on score, well behind him on population at 17 villages, 244 right now. But Alpha is now taking a more defensive town center, I'd say, because even though it's sort of still exposed from this top side, there's actually a lot of area for that to be hit, and it's hard to actually get a good surround here because it's so close. I don't know if Nero can actually see that town center going up, so he can't see it with the towers, but he did see it somehow, and he must have just missed it, or he must just be afraid to go in on it. Now he might be able to see it, so this is going to be a good fight for him though, because he can see the town center. He's only got to deal with bowmen now basically, because there is only a single or a pair of spire above, but one's about to die. Another tower going up, and I don't think either of these town centers are in range to hit the tower, and the tower is actually in range to hit these villagers on the berry, so this is really good for Nero, really bad for Alpha right now. He's still getting bowmen, which isn't a bad idea just because he does get the range damage, but at the same time he needs to be careful and have some units in reserve just to kill the raiders, some of the melee units, just because, yeah, he can't afford to lose anything more at this stage of the game. He's taking harass straight on his villages and on his production facilities, straight around his town center, so it's not looking very good for him at the moment, but he could deal some damage here and possibly interrupt this tower. They take a lot of damage, yeah, so he does get the tower interrupt, so that's good for Alpha, but he needs to get double villager production here, no matter the cost, at the moment. because he's well behind on that. 50 villages to 19. He is going to be able to take out this tower though, so it's a bit of a commitment from Nero. But Nero does have a lot more in the bank than his opponent right now. He does have a lot more villages too, so as long as he can continue to expand around the map and keep gathering, he can keep maintaining this pressure now, because Alpha doesn't really have the units to get away with trying to raid him and defend at home again. There's a lot of production here for Nero actually. Although I'm not sure about the ranges, considering he's not really going to make use of them until age 3. He probably could look at ending this game in age 2. But Alpha could continue to make a good economy out of it. Oh, could switch things up and try and make a good economy out of this. And then, yeah, actually turn this game around. But we'll just have to see. Alpha probably needs to get another stables and look at raiding some if he can, if he wants to try and catch up from this far behind. If Nero's not going to push in on him straight away, because he really needs to close that villager gap before the resource bank just ends up giving Nero that much of a lead. It doesn't matter what goes wrong. A lot of villagers here for Alpha, all around that one deer, and he's also getting food over there. He's actually got a fair bit left over here, but he's pretty light on in terms of villages still. Only at 23 to 56 now, so still at, well, less than half of his opponent's villages. Nero's bringing the scout in just to have a bit of a look. What's he going to see? And how much of Nero's base does Alpha actually know about, so Nero has a lot of stuff hidden from Alpha still at this point. He's flying quite blind at this stage, but he's continuing to add units. He wants to be able to mount an attack. Looks like Nero is actually just going to run his cavalry straight across the map at this stage. Actually, wrong one. Yeah, so he's only getting small glimpses of the raiders, and I don't think he would have picked up. Oh, he might have just picked up on it. He's actually repositioning now. So the raiders are here, and Nero's not going to see this. But he might just have the raider numbers to be able to really hurt Alpha's economy, because he's that far ahead in terms of the working count. If he takes out another 5 or 10, it's well and truly going to be it, I think. He's got a big lead. He's already got caravans on the way. Alpha is definitely not in the stage to be able to afford caravans. The Asabara, being set up over here just to check this out. The villagers have actually been preemptively pulled, but Nero is going to come in and check anyway. In fact, keep running past it, because if he can head all the way around, he's actually scouting out over here. I wonder if he's going to... Yeah, so he's just going to run the raiders right around his opponent's base. And he's even going to see, yeah, just how many villages are there. There's going to be nothing on that hunt for him to find, but he's going to get the raiders out of that at least. It's 10 speed versus 11 speed unit. So the raiders, yeah, able to make use of that speed, but this is not a fight that Nero needs to be taking, in a sense, and I think it's going to be a really good fight for Alpha, because it's 8 versus 8 basically, and then one of the raiders had died there, so that's where you see the power of the Asabara. They are a bit more of an expensive unit, 120 resource unit versus a 75 resource unit, so that's really the big strength of them. They are a little bit slower of a cavalry, as you saw, but they are actually a much beefier cavalry too. The raiders, because of their mobility, are going to be able to come straight back in around here and maybe deal some more damage to Alpha's economy. So there's a upgrade going in there on the units. Alpha actually walling off this segment of the map and controlling the side, because he wants to try and deny anything his opponent attempts to do. We're getting resources being discovered 19 minutes into the game over this side. We don't even know what's over in this little corner yet. But this is a good little raid. It's going to find all out about all this market nonsense going on. And he's going to find a good number of villages here, actually. So it's 10 villages there, ripe for the taking. And the Norse player is going to choose to engage in the meanwhile. A lot of the villages going down. But Alpha now doesn't have enough at home to really be able to deal with this, because there's just not the Asabara number that he needs, I don't think. So if the spearman can turn around quickly enough here, then Nero's certainly going to have the advantage in this fight. He just needs to try and micro back these bowmen. In the meanwhile, Alpha needs to be really on the ball with making sure the cavalry don't just tank all the damage to off the spearman like that. Like, he's denied that gold mine, and that's really good for him right now, but he needs to apply more pressure than this, and he needs to have taken a better fight than that, because he's just lost a lot of his cavalry. He's still got a couple of bowmen here, but he has no real front line for any of them. A couple of Asabara actually chasing the spearmen, which is really what you don't want to happen, because the spearmen at any time will just turn around and kill them. There's a lot of bowmen here. I don't think they've got any... Actually, they do have the armor upgrade already, so... Wow, that's nice. Villager might not fall. Oh, he does fall. So I think this one might be a GG, because Alpha cleaning up the market now, but he's just unable to do anything back at home. He's just lost so much. He's all the way down to 24 villagers to 63 from Nero. He's even going to be able to take out this tower with bowmen, which is something that you really don't want to have to happen, because the bowmen deal so little damage to the towers, but there's just that many units for Nero here, and he's able to actually take a cheeky fortress. AlphaLeopard can't actually see this going on, but he's going to run these Asabara back because he's stuck around a little bit too long here at the market. Nero's actually sent a bunch of spearmen over to come and clean that up. Even though they didn't save the market, they've probably killed 3 Asabara, dealt some more damage, so that's pretty good value for Nero, because they are an expensive unit, these Asabara. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet. I think I probably have twice. But these bowmen not having any support here is really good for Alpha, because he's getting a lot of quick kills. The bowmen only take 3 or 4 shots as well to the Asabara and deal next to no damage to them, so... But Alpha scrambling to try and deny this fortress isn't going to have the units to be able to do so at the moment. The bowmen aren't actually focusing the fortress, they've been focusing the infantry, but perhaps that was the difference there, because the fortress is up with only 1400 health. And Alpha calling a GG. I think he's just going to see this final push, because Nero is preparing to actually assault this side of Alpha's base with the spearmen. And that fortress on the front is going to take out that berry storehouse. So Alpha's starting berry storehouse. He's even grabbed Picker's gloves, but if he gets forced off both these berries, he's going to be in a really dire state. He's got a handful of farms. He hasn't even got any villages on any of them at the moment. That storehouse is going to give the vision to deny the fortress, though. But in the meanwhile, Nero can just push from the front side if he sees the cavalry, because the cavalry, 4 Asabara to deal with 4 spearmen, is something you really don't want to have to happen, because the spearmen are actually going to kill 2 or 3 of the Asabara, and it's going to be a terrible trade for the Persian on paper. So right now, the guard tower is going to fall. The Asabara forced back now, but I don't know if Alpha can do anything in this position. His barracks is going to fall. He's got another one here and another stables, but he's just not going to have enough unless he can perfectly take this fight. Nero's chipping down all of these buildings at once. He could probably be better off fixating on one and then another, but he's just got that many units. I think it's GG, guys. Yeah, so a big resource disparity in the end then. That early raiding really hurt Alpha. I don't think he ever really recovered from that position. Let's go back to just train. So both players with a couple of blips in their production of the villages there, but Nero actually doing a fairly reasonable job at keeping the production up. Current population. So Alpha was a little bit slower off the bat, but then once he started losing that big bunch of them, I don't think he ever really recovered a great deal. He did a good job at actually harassing Nero right there at the end, but at a pretty big detriment in the end, because once he took out that market, he actually left the Asabara there and didn't really get any more value out of them until they got attacked by the spearmen. Lost a couple of them, didn't continue pushing into his opponent. Nero taking an age 3 behind all this, and yeah, GG, well played, guys. That's game number 1.